100%, but it says it's, oh yeah, maybe. It says we're live.
Oh shit. All right, it's rocking and rolling. All right, so hey, we're live right now. Here it's me and Kate. We're kicking it, rocking it hard. Hey, we're in the corner, and she's in her corner, better known as the Ecke, and we're just about to talk about different few things out there, mental health, and a lot of other things. Kate, how are you doing today?
I'm good, Vince. What's going on, Warrior?
Hi, man. It's the same old same. You know, I was down at Fort Lauderdale. The Panthers were playing. It was pretty cool. They were getting busy out there. It all worked out. Hey, the Panthers won, and it was a great time, even though I was down there just hanging out. It just happened to I was down there.
How convenient. No, that worked out perfect. And you were with your girls, right?
Oh, yeah. Me and two of my daughters were hanging out, and my mom came by, and we were just all hanging out, and my sister, and just hanging out, you know, just doing a little time. I tried to shoot a little basketball with my nephew who's 13 and like 6'2".
Unbelievable. How old is he?
He's 13 in the 8th grade, and he's 6'2".
That's insane. That's insane. Well, you know, it reminds me of something that you posted lately, and this is kind of like a side note, but, you know, I follow you and I read what you share. And Vince Bugs, anyone on my page, definitely check him out. He's got a great podcast, and I'll be definitely sharing our information after. But you had shared something about like creating elite teams and how it's not just for like people just being able to do walk-in now. And I know that that's been a while, but do you mind talking about that? Because I was like fascinated by that because I'm not in the sport world, but it was people criticizing elite teams about how all the men who great players, and now they're having their own sons and they're in amazing teams, and it's just not the same game.
Oh, no, it's not. You know, and I don't want to even go down the biological side, the gender side of all this, because, you know, I got Jimmy the Greek fired.
Yeah, right. Exactly. What is that? So what is though the progression has been that it's basically, if you want to be elite, you got to start young. And that's, you know, maybe there's a financial aspect to that. Yeah, there's resources to it. But if you want to be excellent at anything, you've got to embrace excellence early on and have people around you to mentor you.
Yeah, but what we're talking about is that next level of where people are actually being very selective of who they partner with, and being very selective of looking at certain characteristics and things. So I think what's happened is the metamorphosis kind of started in the 70s, but there wasn't that much, you know, many of the super athletes were still kind of, you know, moving anything. If you look at the number of biracial athletes we have now, you know, just the numbers are off the chart, even in the NBA and in the NFL. And so what you're talking about now is that you look at guys that are like 6'6", 6'5", and they date someone that's 5'11", 6 foot. So when your mom's a volleyball player in college, you're talking two good athletes.
Right.
So so when you're talking about two good athletes, and then they have, you know, their offspring, the chances of them, I mean, not always, but the chances of them having that coordinated, genetically engineered kid is possible. It doesn't matter who you are. I hate to say it like that, and it's no way on it. But now you know people are complaining because what happened is, reason you saw that article about the elite thing was the kids that normally used to grow up in the inner city and some of the out in the outback of wherever used to be those kids that were sought after for those critical athletic positions, right? But now that you are, let's say, and I did the math the other day, you are now like 35 years in and I'd say it was like 1973 when it's kind of started, but now you got grandparents. So you're like 40, 50, you're 40 years in now to where there is a big population of athletes married to athletes having children.
Right. It's fascinating. I mean, I think that's fascinating. And you know what? It doesn't rule out that you can't succeed. And I think you and I are perfect examples of like taking our lumps at early ages and sort of stumbling our way, right? And the only reason why I bring that up is because when we're talking about, and there's a couple things I want to talk about today, because, you know, we're on it, and we're talking about getting, obviously, the excellence pass and knowing who you are and surrounding yourself with the right people. And like you and I, similar backgrounds, that we really didn't have anyone that like us in our immediate surroundings. And we had to be humbled a little bit and stumble our way to realize what we didn't want, that our identity that we wanted to develop, we identified and created it based on, oh, hell no, I'm not going down that path.
Oh yeah, but when you think about when we grew up and you look at that, even people that were athletes or let's say smart people, that's and people can argue about what they want. It's a cultural and environmental thing. I look at the kids that won the spelling bee every year. I look at the kids that excel in math and science and technology. And there's a strategy and there's a plan behind it. Now, does it work 100%? No, but it does. Going back to prove one thing is that if you get put in the right environment, regardless of where you come from, if you're able to get in a new environment and change the culture, you can succeed. And you see that multiple times when they did the case study back in the early 70s, where they took some kids from the inner city and they moved them out to not to the suburbs, but out to like the country area. And they were out working on farms and going to school. And in the end, they excelled in their self-esteem. Just the gamut of them, their success was shot through the roof. So it kind of went back and proved that your environmental shift can help. And then, like, you look at yourself, regardless, you grew up with 9 kids, or you grew up in a big family, all brothers. You had all those dynamics. They shaped part of you,
right?
But they also, Kate, I have a challenge and say to you, there is some point you left your environment and changed your environment. Okay.
Yeah. And that's painful. And I want to talk about that because I really want to hit on this topic of like an identity crisis. And, we do talk about men's mental health quite a bit because both of us are deeply committed to that for sure. And it's just like the evolution of excellence. And for me, I think that personal growth comes and stems from places and times in your life where you had an identity crisis that like you said, my identity was established by I'm one of 9 kids. That I thought explained a lot about my neuroses and my bizarre behavior. But ultimately what happened is that my mom chose me. She picked me out of the litter and put me in an environment at Performing Arts High School where I was so uncomfortable. My identity that I thought who I was so removed that I had to establish myself as a new identity. I felt, I was humbled. I felt degraded. I felt like I don't belong here. And yet I rose to the occasion. And years later, I talked to both of my parents. I'm like, you guys, I'm so grateful because we had no money. My mom's like, I like to say I was her favorite, although my other siblings wouldn't like that. But like, my mom knew that there was something else in me. And she basically she had her oxygen mask on and passed me outside into another realm in a place that who knows, I could have risen or not. But when I said it and brought it up to my parents, I thank you a lot for giving me that opportunity. They said, Katie, the other ones couldn't have done what you did. And so there, I think, are some innate qualities of grittiness, and grittiness is not something necessarily we can learn. And I think you and I share that quality, but we can certainly decide that we want to create another identity. And is it easy? No. But is it possible? Absolutely.
Oh, I mean, moving from Bossier City, Louisiana to Germany, when my dad was in the Air Force and staying overseas for a long period of time, I will honestly say that culturally, it changed my perspective on life, being able to go to Italy, going to Switzerland, going to Austria, going to, just going to France. Amazing. And what it shaped me was that once we got out of Jack's quarters and we were in Europe, and you're going to different countries and different languages, and you're having to navigate all of this, it gave me a better perspective on the world as a whole. And then, I'm a big history major, double history master's guy. And just understanding those elements and how we got, you get back to the United States, then it brought just so much context to why we are where we are in the United States. And when you talk about self-identity, now that's the thing, is there are multiple when you get removed from the United States environment, and it's something that we may talk about down the road here, But military brats have a high problem with, once they've been overseas a long time, coming back and assimilating back into America. They have a lot of mental health issues. And
Wow.
Christopher Christopherson, the actor, was a military brat. And anybody out there, if you ever get a chance to pull up his military brat video, he talks about the depression, the struggles that military brats have when they come back from being overseas a long time. Because when you're overseas, you kind of congregate, and it doesn't matter what you look like, who you are. It's just that you're all American and you all hang out, and and you're in Europe. Yeah. And then when you come back to the States, you have to go through the environmental social change, which hurts a lot of people's identity.
Well, let me ask you a question. This is so significant because as a Black man, I dated a guy that played for a professional baseball team. And he said that, he goes, in America, it doesn't matter how successful you are. You're identified as a Black man. And he said, I will take my children, my 2 sons, out of the country so they can just be men. Because in America, you're identified as a Black man. You're identified by your race. And I'm curious about what your experience was, that being in Europe and just being a man. Did you find that to be an identity thing?
Well, my mom is, being from the South, and the Emmett Till thing happened because she was a teenager when that happened. Wow. So then she ends up having me, and she's like, I have a son, and we're down here in the South, and Mississippi, Alabama, and Louisiana just ain't cutting it, and the Arklatex of Texas not cutting it. We got to get out of here. Because I will tell you, the one thing I told my mom, and we had this actual conversation, was, when I got back I went to Germany, and growing up overseas, and I learned to speak German and learned to speak a little bit of Italian, a little bit of French and all that. I never, and this is weird, and I tell people this all the time, when I lived in the German village, I was just Vince Bugs.
You were.
I wasn't the Black kid, and the one or so Black kid running up the street in the whole of Germany. I was Vince Bugs, and so ironically, when I came back to the States, we pretty much, I was, I would say, college, kind of, getting ready for college. So the first time I really saw the intensity of our culture and self-identity was at Louisiana Tech in Ruston, Louisiana. And when I got there, what I saw was, I was kind of appalled by, because they still had Southern Day where people would wear Confederate uniforms and walk down the street. And Southern Belle, and it was like all acceptable, and no knock. That was, they want to use the term culture, but from an African American standpoint, and seeing my dad fight in Vietnam, and understanding my mom was kind of working hard during civil rights and all that, her points of view on civil rights, it was disheartening that it's like we can't get past ourselves as a culture.
And did you
feel self-identify as yeah, absolutely. Wow, I give him a best time is in California. I was in college, and I went out to California to see my uncle, and I was driving his car, and he had an expired tag. Now, here we go. And I got pulled over, and then the police officer, and I was on the date, and then the police officer pulled me over and put me through the 3rd degree on the street corner. I'd never been so humiliated. And at the time, I told him, I said, hey, I got a Georgia's driver's license. I left Louisiana. I go to college in Georgia now. I'm not from here. This is not my car. It's my uncle's car. The registration is clearly not in my name. I said, so I don't understand why you're harassing me. Well, he goes, I don't know why a girl would go out a guy that has an expired tag on a car. He just grilled me. And so for about 40 minutes or an hour, I was on this hot pavement in California. But I took that situation, and it was funny as I went to the judge, and the judge was in there talking to me, and I told him I was in ROTC in college, and the judge goes, oh, you're doing something with your life. And he goes, so he didn't let me totally out of the ticket, but the thing was, I saw his shift, because he was a veteran, in the way he navigated me in that room of like 500 people at night court.
Holy smokes. Right. So, what would you say to the audience, though? Because, I think that's such a curious thing. And I'm like your mom. Like, my parents were super civil rights activists. They just were. It was like they were like the Catholics from the Midwest. We were my parents were civil rights hippies. So basically, for me, it was just that was part of life. And I didn't even see race the same way. And so But I had an extreme sensitivity to it. My mother worked in an all Black orphanage in Detroit, right? It was her thing. That was my parents' way.
8 miles, 8 miles.
Yeah, right. And my dad too in Chicago. So my parents were super. So for me, I still get so offended about that. When I heard that guy say that it's like, you're not just a man, you're a Black man. I was like, that's so harsh, man. It's really harsh.
Well, I mean, but really, I mean, Kate, Reggie Jackson put it in context this week. I mean, if anybody saw the interview with Reggie Jackson 2 days ago on sports, and they asked him about baseball, and he literally went unfiltered. He literally explained that, you know, he was always in fear of his life when he was down in Birmingham, Alabama, and he had every right. He said, you know, four girls were killed in a church, and he's down there with the Birmingham, whatever the pro team, the minor league team was. He said, so it was very prevalent. There's restaurants he couldn't go to, and everybody goes, oh, it's 67. But, you know, I always tell people this, and I even used to say this in the military. People would always say, I don't understand what the problem is, why everybody's so upset about this or that. I said, well, you don't ever see a problem if you're never impacted by the problem.
Right on.
If you really woke up in your morning every day and your life goes on as normal and you're never impacted by the environment around you, and the same with like fitness or anything else you do, then you're oblivious to it, because it's not that you're walking with blinders on. You're just not impacted as a human being.
You're not impacted. So significant of a point. So significant, man. Thank you. That's so big. Thank you for sharing that. Really appreciate it for sure.
Yeah,
so what would you say about, and you know, I want to just hit that up because I want to talk about identity, is the importance of identity. But is there anything else that you'd like to add in regard to like navigating a change of identity? Because a lot of conflict comes and a lot of crises are birthed out of like, whoa, society's telling me to be one way. And, you know, like either as a man or as a woman, but it's like your identity isn't necessarily what society is telling you. And how do you have the fortitude to be able to stand into that? I mean, what would you give as advice to people in regards to that?
I mean, it goes back to plan and stretch, but I mean, people have to at some point look and do the what I call the human assessment of your life, right? And when it comes down to your identity, and that's like the circle of friends, man. If you're not getting ahead in life and you're not moving forward, and you're in Groundhog Day, which you're repeating the same rinse, what do you call it, wash and rinse cycle of life, then it comes to a point where you have to identify. And I think the military does a very, very good job, because every 3 years or every 4 years or every 2 years, 18 months, you have to move. Ooh. So the problem is that not the problem, but the environment, the military forces a person to have to change their environment. Sometimes for the good, sometimes for the bad, but they have to change their environment. Now, however, I will caveat this. It's taxing on people who are comfortable.
Really?
And some of them get out. Some of them get out of the military because they're forced to move. They'll retire early. I mean, they'll do a lot of things, because what I see is that people that become comfortable in the military and get to stay at a duty station 10 years or 11 years, when their orders come around for them, the PCS, they struggle with why is the military treating me like this? Why am I being mistreated? I'm being singled out. And I go, well, only the other 500,000 been moved.
Right.
Like they're supposed to.
And people say they want change, right? But they're not lining up to change. And that's it's so very true. And you know, as a high performance coach, I work a lot with resistance, and obviously people are going to come in our circle if they want to give us the status quo. It's not necessarily our MO, but a lot of it is, you know, when you want to change, you have to own the stuff that maybe isn't so pretty. And that's why the reason why I brought up that story about me going to private high school is that at my original community with my family, that was like, it was okay. I was exceptional because I was different. I was brighter. I was creative. I had positive energy, like all these other whatever qualities. And so I was exceptional in my original community. But when I came into another community, I was the opposite. I wasn't even mediocre. I was deep. And in fact, I tell people the story that, you know, I'm a best-selling writer, and I know you got your book coming out, Vince. I can't wait to support you on your book launch. But I got a D- in composition in my first paper when I got shipped off to private school. I thought I was an awesome writer. So it just shows to go you know. And for some reason, being humbled and getting my butt kicked was part of the lesson that I got really comfortable with. And that would be my advice for anybody that is wanting change, but wanting it to be easy, and understanding that change isn't going to be easy. That when you re-identify with who you are from a psychological state and also your community, it's going to be hard. You got to fall in love with it. You have to fall. It's no different from the fitness thing. You got to face the fear and face the ugly and do a little Goggins on yourself.
Yeah. But you know, you make a point about the rapidly changing world, and here's the problem we have now is, now I'm not going to even put the burden on social media, is that we have grown up since 1995 with the different perspective on raising children, because you know we came through the Vietnam era where parents were very aggressive at the latchkey kids and all that. Our generation, where we were kind of raised ourselves, and to now be seen not heard generation, I call us, to now, where
in fact we got soap in our mouth if we got heard when we weren't supposed to. And you didn't want the dial. You didn't want the dial soap. Nope. Right. Didn't.
All right. So with the rapidly changing world now, and I'm gonna just say grown adults are struggling with self-identity. And you know, and the sad thing about it is, I even saw it with the military and when I got out. If you ever allow your job title or your position in life to become your identity, you are actually heading down a slippery slope. And now, I have the title general, and it's cool, but like I don't identify. So like, if I don't ever tell anyone in a circle that I'm a retired general, they'll never know. Because my personality is totally 180 when I'm around people, you know. And then so somebody goes, well, you know, I was in the military and blah, 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 blah. And I sit there and he goes, but most of y'all wouldn't know that. I go, really?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. So what would the advice that you would have on that? Because you had to, well, even just getting out of the military, right? So you didn't have, you didn't over attach to the identity? Because I'm curious on how your path worked on that, because I think that's the hard thing about retiring from the military, or retiring, even, you know, these women that their babies go off to college and they're a freaking mess because they've only identified with their role as mom. And so it's like, my identity is mom. And I guess that's the same thing when my son passed. It was like, wow, I was a mom of 3 and now a mom of 2. Like, even though I know I'm a mom of 3 still, but it's just, that was a freaking huge identity. You know, who am I now if I'm now a mom that's lost a child, right? That's a new identity. So anytime we go through something hard, but what do you think has been your most consistent as you've transformed and transformed your identity as you evolved as a man?
Well, I always told everyone this, is that when I was born, my name was Vincent Buggs. So I always kept who I was. So you don't, your rank is what you get to earn money, right? It's the rank is about achievement. It doesn't identify who you are. And so the problem I see with a lot of my peers were, as they made rank, they became that rank. And as I made rank, I always looked at it as, okay, how much will this carry to me in retirement? This is this. And I kept my identity, because one day the Army's going to say, thank you for your service. It's been a great relationship, but we're going to sever ties and you need to go find something else to do. And it happens to everyone at some point. It's how you decide to walk away. But here's the thing, is when you walk away, you have to make a decision on what you're going to do. So when I walked away, I went into doing the podcast, working on the book, doing all the things, nothing related with the government. And I told someone, asked me, why didn't you go take a government job? Why would I do something that I've already done for 30 plus years? I'm going to go do something else. I actually threw myself under the bus to try to do something I've never done before. So for me, Vince Buggs, it worked out great. Some people have to be in a situation where people constantly come back to them with their title. All the kids, they all call me Coach Buggs. Now, a few of the kids call me General now because, they know who I am. But overall, everywhere I go, it's hey Coach Bugs, hey coach, hey coach, hey coach. I love the title. So I went from hey general to hey coach.
Right. Yes. You by nature just bring that energy along with you.
Yeah, but Kate, you just got done speaking somewhere, and you look at, so I'm like, have people put pressure on you to go back and say, well, look, this person has a PhD. I think you've done, I looked at the amount of books you've written and the amount of content you've put out. So and I'm gonna put this one on you. So normally a person in your position, for some reason, and I'm gonna say most dominantly the females as opposed to the men, there's this hidden agenda where you guys are kind of force fed to go and get a PhD because you've established this cap so far. So what process have you come and someone go, well, you need to be Dr. McKay? I mean, I'm asking. I was just wondering about that.
Like, I guess it's the same as you. It's like I've always been Kate McKay, and I think that I'm only Catherine when I'm in trouble. So if someone says Catherine, I'm like, oh, but I do. But the thing is I always felt that way too. And in fact, I was putting out a show, and the producer was like, Katie, can I tell you something? And I was like, yeah, like what? And he said, you're always the same. And I go, yeah. And he goes, like, you're talking to the janitor, you're in front of the camera, you're always the same. And I was like, well, who the hell else would I be? And I think that's actually, I think that's something why, Vince, you and I care about each other, is because we're similar energies in a world where people are more, they become their title. And I think that having that clarity comes with a responsibility that I feel that, yeah. And well, I just feel like I am responsible to be the light of consistency for others. I am here to challenge other people. I am here to give people tools and strategies so they can embrace their greatness. Because I had to figure that out on my own, but there was a knowingness that I knew I was here for more. And that's what I wake up 2 feet on the floor every day, bone ass tired. Going, who am I serving today? I don't know, but I know someone's on my agenda. And it could be Hector, the guy my maintenance guy. I love him. I'm like, where are you from? Guatemala. We were talking. It was like, that was deep connection. I can rest my head in the pillow saying I was present for someone, that I care about someone, because that's the bottom line. That's what my parents taught me to do, to care, to live in a place of kindness. And yet what I had to learn was I'm also here to challenge people, that I am my own general, that I'm here to make people uncomfortable, to grow. And if they don't want, they won't be in my circle.
Right. And you really hit it, made a good comment, because when I was competing in that health and fitness competition, came in second in my group, whatever. So and I want to thank everybody that supported me on that. I love you guys. Everybody was out there, but it was really great to see the amount of people just come in and try to help and be part of what I was trying to do and inspire. So and it's funny is that sometimes you inspire people and they may not tell you, but you start seeing a change in culture. So like the good one is around my football coaches that we all coach with. So we had a few people, we were putting on a little bit of weight back in the day. It's funny now is that when I go in there, like all the coaches are like, we're all thinner. And, wow. and the comment really is, if you look at the old man, because I'm like the old guy. And so now they're like, changing their weight. They're making little adjustments in their lives, and it's pretty cool. But it comes back to the thing is what you're pursuing growth, right? Personal growth. And the thing is, I always tell the players, if the seniors on the team, you have to set the standard to where everybody else wants to follow. And the thing is, it's like me, a retired general. I cannot go into a meeting being overweight, out of shape. And I tell people this, and people think I'm harsh about this. And credibility comes in through the eyeball test of life, right? Personal growth. I understand that if I come into a meeting to speak about health, fitness, or confidence, or overcoming tragedy, the first thing they're going to look at is the person that walks in the room.
Right on. And it shows, it goes back to that whole concept about responsibility, that it's like, if you were given the energy you were given and the power, in the inner power and the commitment to serve at such a high level, who are we to diminish that?
Right.
And I also think that for me, and I love it that you have a military background. Another reason why I think you're so awesome, because I think in military terms, I'm like strategic, tactical, operational. Like I can't help it. I'm a strategist all the time. And I reference myself as the general because I think a lot in strategy. It's just my way. Who do I have to protect? Who's on the front line? Like I just can't help it. But it's that part of the identity of knowing that you're here to challenge people for more. And yet at the same time, the purpose is an evolution, right? Because we don't always know. And I think people are like, I don't know what my purpose is. I don't know what my identity. You don't have time not to know. That's Kate being Kate. You don't have time not to know. People need what you got. Do not hoard your goodness. You don't have time to be confused. Go serve people. You'll be so surprised at how much you figure out about yourself and while you're in acts of service.
Yeah, and and you touched on it. There was a couple stars this week. God bless them. They made that permanent decision over a short-term issue, and they didn't get help. And it's like an ongoing theme. So there's like two things. I hate to turn the TV on and hear. It's always something about a mass shooting, and it's always something about a very young person dying young. But and it's an identity crisis problem. But from my standpoint on the identity crisis problem is that we've created an environment that's unhealthy with social media and expectation management, right? So me and my youngest daughter go back and forth because she plays soccer in college, and she's had a few setbacks and different things in her life as she goes. But I keep telling her that's a part of the process. I said, it's easy to want to throw the baby out with the bathwater, the old term from the 60s or whatever when we were kids. But I said, but you have to think about it. It's a learning thing. And are you going to have setbacks even though you're a good player? Absolutely. I said, but the problem is you have all these negative people that are supposed to be your friends giving you feedback and telling you what your value is, when you really need to be looking at what your value is internally, and then understanding that you may need to get some people out of your life that aren't bringing value. Because I tell people, even successful people will find 900 knives in their back because just because people may say they're happy for you to be successful, it's also why is it you? Why not me? Absolutely. Like when I hear people win the lottery, I'm so happy when someone wins the lottery. I don't go, oh man, why did they win? Why wasn't it me? I'm happy that it was a luck of the draw. But other people, are just like, I can't believe that person won. And it's one of those things in life when it comes down to your mental health and your physical health and everything else, is that we all have to have this identity crisis of who we are and get through it. And I'm telling you, young people are struggling, Kate. Young men are struggling with it. And young women, now that I'm seeing all this content going back and forth with
you see that too.
Girls.
Yeah, I saw that too with young girls. I listened to this interview, very interesting podcast interview. And basically it's based on the science behind the biology, but a big part of the change happened when women went on the pill, that we were able to choose our own sexuality and be able to not be, because most of the time women were worried, I'm going to get pregnant. My mom had 9 kids. It was like, whoops, this is the only way, right? But when women had the power to choose, we were like, freedom, right? But the bottom line is there was ramifications that we're now living in, that we are now living in. It worked out real well for men and not so well for women on one end of it, and not so well for men and well for women. So we are coming into new conversations about this sexual revolution and how different men and women really are, and how we approach our own physical, mental, sexual health. And we will definitely be tapping on that conversation on another issue of this podcast.
Right. Yeah, but you hit a key point, is you use the term freedom. Well, you've always had freedom. The question I would say, and I would challenge, is this for women in general on this side, since I got all girls, is that it wasn't the noise in the house that you were hearing. It was the noises outside of the house. And so a massive confusion, the freedom of the pill, hey, no problem. I think that was an adjustment from the 50s, because it was, invented in the like 63 or whatever. But when you look at the messaging afterwards, and I'm not even worried about the 21st century messaging. If you go back and look at the 1970 messaging, and my mom and me, and we had this conversation a while back, and we were talking about free love, the Colts, and in my history class, I used to have to teach it in my college history class about free spirit and how everybody was just out there, just out there. And I said, and the problem is people are like, oh, that's something new. Absolutely is not, because it happened to set from like 65 or 66 to almost 75. Until Ronald Reagan came around and put conservative values back into the mainstream, you know.
I think the momentum was already going, right? And I think we're looking at the new identity of what it is to be men and women and honoring the differences, that we're not the same. And I think that we tried to make it out like, oh, now we're free and we can be the same. We're not the same. We're not biologically the same. We're not psychologically the same. We're not the same. Thank God. Right.
Oh my God,
and I think that this is such a powerful conversation, controversial for sure. But it is something that needs to be addressed in the world at large. But what are the benefits, and what is it? How is it that you want to identify yourself, right, as a person, and what are the values that are true for you? Because it's always evolving and changing, and yet you have to have these set things that you know who you are at the core value, what your core values are. And that's something that no one else can define for you. You got to do it for you. It's not going to be easy because you have to go in, but it is the most important work you can do. Clearly, I'm a coach, so I think that that's everything. But, you know, when you look at the statistics that only 90% of the people do psychological or spiritual, only 10% do psychological or spiritual work on a daily basis. That means 90% of the people are just scrolling.
Yes.
Thanks for scrolling. If you're watching us, I'm Kate McKay and it's Vince Bugs. We're here through your scroll. We appreciate you.
Yes, keep going. Oh my God. Yeah, you had me cracking up because the gruelest thing about being a parent is you get to watch the metamorphosis or transition of your children, right? So I remember my one oldest daughter coming out of college and hard liberal on everything. You know, it's just women are right, men don't know anything, and it was pretty great. And now that she's in her early 30s, and you know she's been married a while, got kids, and that we sit down when I went to Europe and we were talking. I'm like, who the hell is this person? Because now her whole perspective of when she was 19, 20 is just like flipped on its head. She's like, when she has her conversation, she's more concerned about the future of the kids, this environment. And I asked her, I said, so, you know, like sometimes I'm like, what was this massive shift? Well, she says it's hard to try to balance. You want equality for everybody, right? And I said, you know, you absolutely do. But I said, but here's the problem, kid. The world's not fair. No. And I said, and at the end of the day, you have to make sure you can balance fairness across the board with being humble, selfless service. And I tell any college kid, anytime I get a chance, go do some selfless service while you're in school. Instead of going to the next party or joining the next fraternity or sorority, your first year there, study. If you're playing sports, play sports, but volunteer at like the humane society. Volunteer at an old folks home and you go and talk to people. Because I told them, I said I learned a hard lesson in college. I went to an old folks home to talk to people, and I realized I was talking to people they hadn't seen their kid in like 15 years. Their kids literally drove them up, parked them in that old folks home, and left. And so the only people they see are the elementary school kids that come in and sing for the choir, or the middle school, and then maybe some adults that volunteer to come by just to spend a Sunday to talk. And they were just happy to see anybody come by. So it's kind of interesting.
Yeah, that's a really powerful lesson. And I try to, you know, there's a lot of resistance to that. Oh, I don't have time, you know, and it goes back to the thing, time will expand as you fill it with good. Right. And it's amazing how much better you're going to feel about yourself. Service is about what you do and how it actually turns around to be in service to you and your growth. And I say amen to that. It's such a great point.
Hey, Cat Stevens got it right back in the day with the cats in the cradle. I can't never even express that enough with that song. And I tell my daughters, I say, if you just listen to the lyrics, he got that right about, you know, you got to make time. And if you don't give that time to your kids, or you don't give that time to the people that you really care about, at some point they're not going to give no time to you.
No, exactly. They'll be dropping you off at the old folks home. Well, I just want to say thanks for everybody for tuning in here. I'm Kate McKay. We got Vince Buggs. We both have podcasts, but this is our podcast that Vince manages. And Vince, why don't you just say a little bit about who you are and what you do and where people can find you, and I'll do the same.
All right, hey guys, listen up. I am Vince Buggs. I run Embrace the Power podcast with Mike G, and we talk to people that are inspiring to do different things around the world. We actually have a show called Inspire with Jennifer Blaylock also, and she talks to local officials who are doing impactful things in their community. But the thing was, I stood up Embrace the Powers because I sat on podcasts and I just got tired of all the, bringing young people on, talking down to young people giving bad dating advice and just all kind of things. And so I wanted to is amp up and start looking at people that are doing positive things in the world and just amplify their good and show their impact. Is it boring? If you listen. So I always tell people, maybe if just listen to someone, they will give you some nuggets of advice, because that's what it's all about, getting that communication nuggets of advice to improve your life. And so what I always say, you keep it rolling when you're on Embrace the Power. Go ahead, Kate.
I love that. So yeah, I'm Kate McKay, master of getting it done. I'm a high performance coach and speaker. My podcast is Master Your Life with Kate McKay. Vince and I met when he was interviewing me on his podcast, and we were like, this is too much fun. We got to do it and keep bringing the magic to the world. So I'm super grateful that you joined us and listened to us. And I'm grateful for also my ability to serve you. So if you need help, you need support, please reach out. If you know anyone is struggling, or if you're struggling, knowing that there are people out there that love and care for you. I always bring this up. If you're thinking of someone right now that comes to your mind, someone that you know is struggling, one text, one call, one hello, could possibly save their life. I often say, maybe someone done that to my brother or my son, maybe they would still be walking among us as legends. So Vince, I'm so grateful for you. Thanks for this time. This has been a blast going live.
Hey, always, Kate, and much love to you. And hey, you keep it rolling, and hey, keep inspiring as you always do.
That being said, guys, I appreciate you.
I'm out of here.